This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by the things we make. If you want to support Gregory Kamichuk, you can go to gmbkamichuk.ca. And if you think Justin Curry is just all right, you can go to chasingartwork.com.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we do, in fact, talk about how genre gets made. Occasionally, producer extraordinaire Dan Vadeboncoeur flings his glasses off his face to make himself presentable to us.
Didn't need to call attention to
Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Also with me today is Justin Curry, my long-suffering co-host. I encountered him first this morning, drenched from head to toe in sweat as he charged through from boxing, but I had my sunglasses on, which were all fogged up. So suddenly this big sweaty dude is like right in my face as I came into the building. I was talking on the phone and it took me a second to realize it was Justin and I wasn't sure what was going on. So that's how my morning went, dear listeners. I'm GMB Kamichuk, and today, because we've put it off for some time, Justin wants to take us deep beneath the ocean waves today on Super Pulp Science. Part of how we do things here is we talk about the business side of making stuff, but part of creating genre is brainstorming stories and putting ideas together, seeing which ones click. And so we do episodes that are called story breaks. And so Justin's been itching to do a story break beneath the sea.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us what's on your mind?
So the reason this came about, I think every time we do a story break, it's usually because I recognize a pattern in this like series of movies that's like, I'd like to try something like that. And for this particular example, I watched Deep Star 6, which came out in 89, and then Leviathan, which came out in 89, and then The Abyss, which came out in 89.
What was with that year?
All three movies came out within months of each other.
Now, apocryphally, I don't know if this is in fact true, but I've heard that when studios, in that era, when studios had similar properties, they would rush production of certain properties like, oh, they're having their underwater movie out this year, we should have ours out too, so that, if you'll pardon the pun in this case, the high tide would raise all the boats, in that people who are now into watching that kind of movie, it'll splash onto the other properties. The asteroid movie craze is another good example of that,
Volcano
right?
movies too.
Movies, earthquake movies,
Ant movies.
Bugs
Life and Ants came out within months of each other.
The Bee movie and the other
There's only one B movie.
There's only one.
There was another
one
garden
Bee
bug.
movie.
Did Bee movie come out when the ants came out?
No.
That was years ago.
Bee movie was its own thing.
What's the deal with honey? That's just a tangent. Let's get back to the fun of storytelling. Yes, go.
So something like as I'm watching all these under the sea movies, I love the setting. None of those movies in particular I love. I like watching them.
The Abyss.
The Abyss is amazing.
Okay, The Abyss doesn't need the aliens. The interesting thing about The Abyss is all the human stuff, and the alien stuff is almost like felt tacked on.
Dear listener, I beg to differ. You watched the extended edition.
The 2 hour.
Yeah, that one's terrible.
No.
You need to watch the cut down edition,
Okay.
where the aliens are 10% of the story. That's it. The one that was released for theaters is way better.
I watched the one where the aliens aren't evil.
Was there a giant wave coming for a city in the one you watched?
There was no wave. Yeah.
No wave? Okay, then then maybe you did watch that one and you still didn't like it. There's an extended version.
It's not that I didn't like it, but the main. I'm sorry, listener, if you haven't seen the movie in a while, but like the main.
We'll wait.
The main
you
villains
run away and watch it
of the movie are these military Navy SEAL grunts that are brought down to the bottom of the ocean on this scientific vehicle underwater station facility, and one of them starts to have
it's a drilling rig.
It's an oil rig. Yeah,
it's an oil rig. It's an oil rig.
Right.
It's an underwater drilling station, and a nuclear submarine has fallen into a deep trench, and the only people certified to do that kind of diving is this deep water drilling rig. And they're supposed to be the forward operating position of a Navy SEALs group that comes down to recover a warhead. But the main secret objective of this Navy SEALs group is that they believe a Russian superweapon killed the submarine, and their job is, if they encounter it, to detonate one of the nuclear warheads to destroy it.
And on top of that, there's something called like deprivation sickness, or the pressure kind of
They have
can
a
mess.
pressure sickness.
Oh, yeah, psychosis and stuff.
Yeah. So the main grunt starts to go a little crazy.
That's right.
And get paranoid.
Michael Bain, yeah. His ancestors would one day save LV-426 mission from the aliens. Right.
Okay, so let's talk about our underwater story.
Thank you for sticking with the plot.
Let's getting us back to our own thing. Because what I like the most about The Abyss, and I don't know if Deep Star Six achieves this, is the ensemble, the cast.
It does not. It starts to, but everything moves too fast.
Okay, so I think that a good movie like this needs a strong ensemble. So we're talking about like 6 characters. Each person is like their own thing. That's what I love most about The Abyss, is like everybody has their own personality. Even though there's 2 guys I mix up all the time, those 2 really big guys.
Yeah.
But other than that,
Jammer and what's the other guy? Yeah,
but like, I mean, they're oil workers, right? They're big guys. That makes sense. And I also like that dynamic of having people in an environment they're not used to. So these are oil workers, but they're underwater. It's the same idea as Alien, in which they're truck drivers, but they're in space. So is there something else we can put underwater? Another profession that doesn't belong there.
I just want to sum up what you said into actionable, right? It's one thing to brainstorm, it's another thing to take action, right? So what you're saying is, in the ensemble, we need big characters that can have small moments that have big hearts. They don't have to all be about those characters, but we need to feel and see that they're living and alive.
You need to care about them all, yes.
Care.
Another thing I wanted to point out in these 3 movies, and another one underwater more recently with
Yes.
Twilight Girl, I forget her name.
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen Stewart.
Kristen?
Which I quite enjoyed. Not everybody loved that movie, but I
think the movie's
I loved it. So it's a group of people who are also
She's so good in it.
isolated. And another thing that I think The Abyss could have done better is, in all these movies, we never have like any contact with the surface until the end of the movie. And The Abyss is constantly going up and back and down. And so you don't feel quite as isolated because we're seeing the top side all the time. So I think in our story, in our film,
contact.
It's important that we're cut off from the surface or have very little contact with the surface. And we're certainly not having a B story.
Okay, so we need to handle our big cast with care. We have to have no contact with the surface. And your reason for that is we want to make them feel isolated.
It's the same reason outer space movies work so well, under the ocean and outer space, right? You have no way of getting home quickly.
Right. And if
easily.
the apparatus you're in fails, everyone dies. This is an important part of the genre of those films. Yeah. And do we fit a movie? What was the Sandra Bullock amazing?
Gravity. Gravity could have been, and if you did that same movie underwater,
functionally,
right?
you'd have to change the physics, but ultimately, like, there's only so much air, and we got to get somewhere.
Or the other one I pointed out, Life with Ryan Reynolds and those, that could have been a deep sea creature rather than a space monster.
It's essentially the same idea. Is like you're in a protected environment to keep the either vacuum of space or water out, so that because you cannot survive in that environment.
Incredibly hostile environment.
High pressure at the bottom of the ocean.
The other important thing that most of these movies have is really, really cool deep sea diving suits.
Yeah, that are not functional at all, like not realistic at all, and they just
always
look cool.
They always have the greatest lighting on the face of the character, right?
Fernandez, what's going on? I got an angry fish knocking on my door.
Using the ingredients that you have now provided, the rules of our story break, our story must include an ensemble cast, big characters, small moments that have big hearts. We're going to handle the crew with care at first. We're going to trap them in a hostile environment beneath the ocean. We're going to completely cut them off with contact from the surface, and they're going to have really cool suits. So if you're going to have cool suits, this is why I'm summing it up kind of tritely like this with the cool suits, is the suits are only cool if we get to see them. We only get to see them if they have to use them. So what is the use case for the suits that puts those cool suits on display over and over?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The counterpoint I'll give, not counterpoint, but the example is in The Abyss, there are these amazing underwater vehicles.
Yeah, they don't have the coolest suits, but they have really cool vehicles.
They have the coolest underwater vehicles. And every excuse to put one of those vehicles on screen, hanging in chains, dropping into the water, in a chase, in a fight, the mechanical arms. The plot seems to be written around showing off how they can absolutely make that stuff seem and look realistic.
There's a big submarine fight in the middle of the film.
Yeah, submarines with arms have a fight in the middle of the film, right?
And you can really see that that love of those, like that submarine design carried over in Cameron's like newer Avatar movies. There's a lot of focus on these like high-tech submarine
undersea
vehicles.
technology, which obviously is a passion of his, transfer. So then let's use that same rule also. What is a passion for some other type of technology that we're going to infuse? Like you love Gundam stuff. Are these undersea cool suits not just oversized, overdeveloped wetsuits, but in fact underwater humanoid vehicles?
So you could go that way, which I think is a little more realistic, or we could have a piece of technology in our story that negates the crazy intense pressure that you find a couple miles under the water, right?
What are they doing underwater? What's the point?
This is what I'm getting at. So I'm backing up. So what I'm trying to do here, dear listener, from a genre perspective and a creative perspective, is not focus on anything too realistic yet. Just focus on what I find fun about the idea. So right now, me personally, what I find fun about this idea, if we're getting down to these cool suits, is that if we had these big, not submarines, which are nimble, but something as big as a submarine.
Submarines nimble?
Well, by comparison to you or I underwater, right? We would just be crushed under there. If you had a big walking suit, like what it does is it trundles along, walking on the bottom of the ocean, like your mech suits, like your Gundams, right? But they can't zip around and fly like in space battles of that genre. They're stuck to the bottom and they have to walk through that mire. And so you'd have different kinds of designs for different kinds of activities, assuming that you have a pilot in it and it walks and it has a roughly humanoid shape, and let's say it weighs 2 or 3 tons. So what are you doing under the ocean now?
One-upping your kind of direction, instead of a suit, it almost sounds like you're talking about like a little personalized, little personal vehicle. Almost like in my mind, I'm thinking almost kind of like a turtle-esque design with the shell being a dome and a little person at a seat controlling it, walking along the ocean floor.
Okay, so here we go. We've got a turtle design.
Or a crab turtle.
And I've got, in my imagination, I see a huge, big, kind of like, and maybe it's because I got Cameron on the brain. In the Aliens, there's the big heavy lifter, the loader.
The loader, yeah.
Right? Something equivalent to the loader that walks along the bottom of the ocean.
I know what they're down there for.
Okay.
I saw a 60 Minutes piece a while ago about this. I don't know what it is. It's some kind of mineral or resource under the ocean, and it forms into these little balls, these spheres.
Mermaids.
Is that what they're called?
No, I'm just...
Okay. No, I thought you saw the same thing, and I don't know what it's called, but it was like this little, and it's like this, they're talking about kind of in the South China Sea and in the Pacific Ocean, and China is getting into this, and they're really going hard, and so the Americans have to get in there, and da-da-da-da-da, and they're all competing for the resources.
What do they use these for?
It's various, it's like things you mine for various technology, and I don't know, I can't find it. I tried Googling it, I can't figure out what it is. But it would be like they're collecting this mineral under the water. They're collecting some sort of resource from the water.
Right. So like a mining...
From the bottom of the ocean.
Okay.
Like
so
they're scraping the bottom of the ocean.
So on one side you have these guys who are in the little turtles, and they're mining the bottom. No, I think the walkers are miners.
Well, maybe the turtle is the huge thing that's
Collecting
walking.
them.
That is like the base. The
walking
facility
turtle.
is a massive turtle with a dome.
And I think that it has one of the... So in my imagination, there's 2 factions. I don't know why, but one of them is dragging a huge cable across the ocean that's going to connect some, whatever it is. That's what they're doing. Whatever's in it, whether it's an oil pipe, I'll figure that out later, dear listeners. The idea here is that I love the idea of this gargantuan architecture that they're in charge of just moving along. And on its path is this other group that also wants something else. And now it could create a conflict.
So you have some scientists and you have some blue collar workers doing their job.
That's right.
So you have 2 groups.
2 groups, and they're both doing the best they can with what they got, and now they're in conflict by accident. And what if those people who are the scientists, that was your idea, not mine, I like it. Well, what if they're trying to save something from the path of this development?
I have a list here of who our groups could be. We have the blue collar workers, which you see in like The Abyss, and I think actually all the movies we've listed are blue collar workers.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, there's explorers, so maybe there's a part of the ocean that opened up, hasn't been explored. There's something down there. We need to actually go and see it. There's the scientists kind of fall into there as well. And then there's the not supposed to be there.
Yeah, right.
Where it's a group of people that...
Outsiders.
Yeah, that has no right to be in this situation, has ended up there by accident. That's pretty hard to explain a couple miles under the water.
Well, one thing you could rely on in a story like this, I mean, let's imagine...
Pirates.
Well, no. Well, here's what I was going to say. The outsider... Okay, so I have a few ideas all forming, so I'll just present them as a use case one after the other. Number one, it could be a third party that comes down and interrupts, but I think that's too ham-fisted. You have one other thing, too much exposition is required. It's better to make a spy or an outsider among us character in one or both of the groups. That, let's say you had in your turtle, right? The job that they're doing, dragging this huge cable across, right? And then you have the walkers, who are the scientists who are supposed to be gathering up whatever samples they can before it's destroyed forever by human industry. In both groups are people who know what's actually there, some other use for some other object. Let's call it the MacGuffin, Maltese Falcon of our story, right? And they need to get it before either side does. And so that would introduce another really important piece of the genre elements of these underwater stories, these big apparatus stories. There's usually a saboteur, right? Okay. There's usually someone who done broke it, and you find out, hey, that's the guy. The reason it's leaking is them, Sometimes they sabotage the relationship, like Burke and Aliens, but sometimes they are sabotaging, right?
Burke sabotaged a lot more than a relationship.
Well, what I mean is like the human assets.
He put an alien in a room with a
There's definitely going to be
child.
one character in this, someone that's going to be telling them who's got the bottom line and who's thinking about the profits and stuff like that. There's got to be.
Is that what the film is? Our story is officially titled, until you come up with something better, The Bottom Line.
Okay.
So we have a massive turtle construct that's slowly moving along the ocean floor, dragging some kind of huge cable that's connecting.
That's right. And it's going to meet up with another turtle.
So there's two turtles.
There's two coming, like whatever these big underwater...
This is kind of reminding me of in Dune, how they have the spice collector things out there, right?
So imagine big underwater spice collectors dragging some huge cable from one continent to the other, and when they connect, it'll be a great and wondrous event. The people who are in this story could not care less. This is just their job.
Yeah.
They haul stuff across the ocean all the time.
And this thing has to move so slow. Maybe it's a multi-month contract.
Months and months they've been under there. And so the dome provides them living quarters and a sense of, normal human activity, which gives space for that stuff that Dan insists is important in these stories, which is heart.
Yeah.
If they're not doing normal human things, we can't relate to them. I've never been on a submarine, so if I watch someone do submarine stuff, I can't relate to them the same way that I do when a submarine movie shows them eating chow or playing cards.
Yeah.
And we're setting this kind of in the future where this domed construct turtle is obviously a lot more advanced. So instead of being this cramped little submarine hallways and bedrooms and stuff like that, it looks like it's a little more comfortable living quarters and play area. And
so here's a bit of
cafeteria.
Here's the way we can handle it.
Yeah, let's trust in the business of science, huh?
So we've got this huge, big, it's like the corporate machine of the turtle that walks across the ocean is essentially destroying the natural environment. And the scientists need to come. Now, they're underfunded. They don't have the same kind of resources.
Do they have a turtle? It's just a lot shittier version?
No. I think they have these big suits, these big walking suits. And it's basically like living in your tent under the ocean for months, right? And then when they meet up, you can have that moment where they like come in and they're like, oh my God, this is what money feels like. Like you could show the value of the one thing versus the other.
Okay, your big... huge 2-ton mech suit thing that moves slowly. I also want it to have a tether that goes back to like a small little turtle or something. I want them to have umbilicals.
Okay, to go all the way to the surface.
Maybe,
that's what we cut. That's how we show that everything's cut off.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, the one in the abyss.
See, that's the downside here is that we don't want to just...
Well, that's a giant cable. Like, we can do it a different way. If it's stuff that's, like, connected directly to the
So the turtle would be dragging one, theoretically. So they would have that also. They could be cut off. You could have the communications in one cut off.
Well, maybe we're at the deepest part. There's a trope is a hurricane, right?
It's always bad weather on the surface.
Yes.
Let's not do that.
But it doesn't matter what's on the surface.
No. In Leviathan, the whole thing was they kept telling them there was a hurricane, and when they finally went up there, it wasn't. It was just there could be the communications array gets damaged. It could be we're at just a dead spot. We're in the middle of the ocean. We're just not getting anything.
Or what if that's our outsider's sabotage? And so what's weird is that, and that's what makes the mystery that brings everyone together.
Just to break the radio, and that's
right.
It.
Yeah. The scientists say, we've all lost contact with the surface. And so they contact the next closest thing, which is the turtle. And they say, we've lost contact with the surface. And they go, well, that's really weird because they're hard cables. Like right? Let's get together and try to figure this out. And that's how they have. That's how we. I feel
like there should be some kind of conflict before they get to that point.
Yeah. They're in the way. They're stopping them because of the mystery spheres that Dan has introduced.
Can I just jump to the end for a second?
Yeah.
I love for us to like have the ending happen and they come back to the surface and the world has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Like it's been like a Holocaust or something like that, and there's nobody there because everyone's dead.
The world ended. All right.
While they were under the ocean. I don't know, just thought that'd be cool.
No, it's done. I wrote it. Now it's happening. So
maybe
the surprise ending, whatever else happens, the post-credit scene, the final chapter, the epilogue, however you do it, the world ended, and that's what cut it off. It's not a sinister.
Yeah, it's not a storm. It's nothing like that.
Yeah.
But they don't know that. There's no way to know until the end. So
And the end of the world. So then what I love about this is one thing reveals the other thing, and their suspicion is confirmed, but the reason is wrong. I'll explain. We have spies in both groups. And as soon as communication is cut off, they start investigating both groups. And they realize there are spies and saboteurs in both groups who deny that they did it. And of course, they don't believe them and do bad stuff to those people.
Yeah.
Right? And then it turns out way later you go, oh, those guys actually were innocent. Right?
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I have a story beat in where we can check a couple of these boxes. The turtle dragging the huge cable gets to a canyon that they knew was coming up, and so they have to perform a leap, which takes a whole bunch of things going. They're basically jumping over this. They're underwater. They have the ability to do this.
What if it had the legs could extend enough that it could tip onto its back legs, extend its front legs so it's like a bridge, and then slowly drop.
Do like a little
down
hop
on
even.
Yeah, to create the bridge. Which
this is where the saboteur comes in, and they start going down into the canyon. So they have to drop the pipe that they've been dragging, drop the wire.
All right, so I'll say yes, but why do they cut it? Wouldn't it save them from falling if it's so big and
But
heavy?
it's the company. That's the important thing.
Oh, so then what you have is you have a fail-safe device that lets go of them rather than damage
yes.
it. And they have to override that device. They're like, oh, well, they care more about their stupid cable than us.
Yeah.
But now we're way deeper than we were supposed to be, and they have to take this huge vehicle and find a way out of this area, which is where we could run into
What?
the MacGuffin.
Okay, that's what I was going with.
He pointed at Dan as if Dan had the answer, and Dan was like, "We haven't figured that out."
All I was going to say was, at deeper levels of the ocean, the pressure gets stronger. So these
that dome would be bad.
You're not built to withstand that. Yeah,
but
there's a time frame involved. They have to fix it before the thing collapses.
There should be some kind of generator which negates the crazy pressure, but now it's running 4 times as hard as it usually has to, and they're on a time limit to get.
Okay. A really useful story device is if you introduce
the ticking clock.
No, yes, but that's not where I was going. If you introduce a scenario in your story, for example, everyone is cramped in their little explorer apparatus at the bottom of the ocean, and they get to come out into the big dome and share what those people have. Mm-hmm. Well, now a good story device is you switch those positions. So what I would do is I would have the dome then under that pressure start collapsing, and it forces all of those people to retreat into the cramped walkers, which means now you have 2 or 3 people in a space that's only built for one. And now you get to flip both scenarios where one group is an expert on their home territory and another group is an expert on their home territory. So the exposition, does not seem so forced. They're now explaining, push this, it does that, do this, it does that. And you have a nice way to have exposition introduced into your story. But you also have a moment where the pressure of that creates more of what we demanded in our original story beats. Small moments, big hearts, people coming together, having to work together. And then you also end up with the ticking clock of, if this is built to sustain one person, the CO2 scrubbers, no problem sustain one person forever. 3 people will overburden it. And in a few hours, days, we're going to die. Mm-hmm. Right? So we're only safe temporarily. And so we have to repair the big walker to get us all out of here. So now you have a reason for them to flee it, get into close quarters together. You have all your underwater, because remember, the other thing that we said we would do if we're sticking to our own rules, we got to show the suits off as often as possible, right? So that means we got to get outside, see the suits working, see the big turtle from the outside, see all that stuff, have the fun, unreal portion of the story where it feels like science fiction and it's fun and exciting and the spectacle, right? Now
so you have the patching the ship.
They're patching it up. Yeah. They're getting it ready. They maybe detach the cable themselves with the... See, there it is. You already you presented it. The company is going to detach the turtle and then it fall into the thing. Right? Yeah,
I like that. The company doesn't care about the human life. They care about the bottom line.
The explorers and the scientists say,
the bottom line.
No, we can stop it from doing that. And they jump into their things and they hold on long enough. It doesn't quite work, so it cracks and it starts leaking. So everyone else has to get into the other ones too. Cramped quarters. But now working together, they could save them, right? Right the ship, as it were. Mm-hmm. And then you have this nice little bit, which is a question that I wanted to ask you. Watching Coogler talk about working on X-Files now, he said that the best piece of advice he got in what is the difference between television and a movie is one that I'll recount now, which I wrote down because I thought it was great. That a movie is the most important moment of a character's life, and a TV series is the most important journey of a character's life. Mm-hmm. So what is this? Is this a journey story or a moment story? And if we decide that, then it helps us determine who is the main character and why, and what is it that's going to happen to them.
I think it's a moment story.
Okay. So then who is the most interesting type of character to be placed into this moment? We have an ensemble cast, but every story needs somebody to embody the viewer, embody the reader, embody the point of view. Who is having this moment, I think, is a really important piece of establishing what your story is about.
My mind goes to like one of these, the group B, the ragtag deep sea divers, the underfunded
Okay, so I have them listed here as the Blues, who are our blue collar guys, and the Explorers is what I wrote.
The Explorers. Yeah. So maybe one of the Explorers used to work for the big company, which is maybe how they know.
Oh, they know what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Oh, they're the outsider. Oh, that's nice.
That's like that, yeah.
And so then, okay. Oh.
They're indestructible.
Yeah. It's like if you blew them apart, all those little pieces in time would come back together again.
You got it.
Well, I don't know if I got it, but here's the pattern that forms in my mind. You have a person who used to work for the company who finds out that they're going to drive this cable through our MacGuffin area. And so he organizes the explorers to come and save it. He hasn't been totally truthful as to what can be found there. He just wants them to gum up the works. As a result, when they meet together in the dome, some of that other crew recognizes him and blames him for everything that's going wrong and mistreats him, maybe imprisons him, maybe beats him up, maybe does all of these things. And we, the viewer, believe that he's capable of that is in fact, we should distrust him. And then it makes the payoff of Dan's idea so much more delicious that he's innocent the whole time, that they mistrusted him for good reason, but the entire time he was innocent. The world ended. That's what what happened.
Yeah.
Right. So if the world ends in our story, then you can't have the world end for no reason, or at least not be connected to the story. You could, dear listener, but then it makes it weak writing. Good writing, a story rhymes with itself. So something about what they're looking for, trying to save and preserve, if they had done it often enough, would have been useful to the safety of the planet Earth. So what would you suggest? It can be anything. Pie in the sky.
Okay.
Miracle pills.
One idea I had, because we talked about this like the other week about doing this, and I was trying to think of like neat things that you could find at the bottom of the ocean, sci-fi wise, that would be interesting. And one thing I thought of is some kind of plant species that thrives in these like it's crazy pressure at the bottom of the ocean, right? There's very little oxygen, there's very little light, and there's a lot of pressure. And there's some kind of plant that still manages to grow. And they take that plant, and when they bring it to the surface, and now it has light, no pressure, and lots of oxygen, it just explodes and is uncontrollable
thrives, but in a good way.
Uncontrollable growth. And the only reason it hasn't taken over the planet is because it's trapped in the deepest part of the ocean. So them bringing something like this to the surface dooms the world.
Or, okay, so what if, if we yes and it.
Or even bringing it into the turtle.
That's what I was getting at. We're going to take it one step, because we're, according to our rules, the reason I hesitated is I wrote down our rules.
Yeah.
No contact with the surface. And so we can't show anything like that until the very end when we're allowed to find out.
So you could have them get a sample, send it up to the surface, because they can send that stuff like that up. No
I think
problem.
that's what caused the turtle break.
Sure.
They bring the sample. So what if the scientists say, global warming, pollution, they're just having this talk like we need something radical, something crazy, and we think we've discovered it,
this
but they keep ruining it.
Is
this thing, if we could bring enough of it to the surface,
there's only a couple patches of it left.
It eats fluorocarbons, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And thrives on that. And maybe you have a nice forest of those volcanic vents, because it makes for such beautiful imagery under the ocean, right? And it's like they're growing among that. So they're taking those samples, and when they bring it inside the dome and expose it to a normal human environment because remember I said, now again, dear listener, one of the rules I'll reiterate here, which I'm trying to use naturally, is I rely on the details we've already established or said. So one of those details was the dome tries to make it as much like a normal human environment as possible, which means it would have full spectrum lighting.
Yep.
It would have, lots of oxygen,
and
lots
you
of
can
water.
cover all this in the beginning of the movie when you're
little bit. When they get the
meeting
tour.
all your characters.
No, this is again that the useful part of having two groups mix is the one explains to the other, and the exposition doesn't seem forced.
Yeah.
Now they introduce this thing, they crack it open, and it just wildly begins to multiply.
And I think it doesn't start to do that until everybody goes to sleep for the night, and then they wake up, and suddenly the dome is now like a jungle area, has been taken over.
Okay, here's an important
this
genre statement. Now that the impossible thing has happened, and I'll mention also to the dear listener, I find this to be
the turtle at the bottom of the ocean.
No. That's the setting.
Yeah.
Right. So under the structure of what Joseph Campbell would call the hero's journey, the normal world is established. In our normal world, there are undersea realms. That's not an impossible thing.
No.
It's only when that changes that something impossible has happened. And it's that change that usually, dear listener, defines what genre you're in, right? If they wake up and it's all full of wonder and mystery and love and joy, then that's established a certain genre. If instead they wake up and the growth has covered Jenkins and hollowed out his body.
Totally.
And, now it's a horror movie, right? So which is it, gentlemen? Is it love and joy, or is it terror and sadness?
Dan, you wanted to destroy the world, so I'm leaning a little bit towards the horror.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's
so then poor Jenkins is hollowed out in the morning, But the thing has grown 20 times its size, maybe 1,000 times its size.
Gotten into all kinds of
gotten
works.
into all the systems, and they immediately blame our outsider. Let's call him, what should we call him? Let's call him James, after James Cameron.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Or we could call him Cameron, whichever you
Call him
want.
Jimmy.
Jimmy. So Jimmy, who has led the explorers to the bottom of the ocean to gather this substance, because he knows there's only a little bit of it, and these great ocean cables are destroying the ocean environment. He tries to be a conservationist in a way. That's what he's told them he's doing, but secretly wants to stick it to the company. And when he encounters the people on the ship and they mix their two crews temporarily,
because they basically have to work together to survive.
That fulfills another important step of storytelling. The why this, why now, right? What's different, what's changing the world of our story is that these two groups have met at the bottom of the ocean, something they normally wouldn't do. Yeah. And the inciting incident is Dan's fault. The world is ended. They don't know that, though. And so all communications on both sides with the surface have been cut off. And they each assume the other is responsible. And when they meet to discuss it, or meet because it's just the human thing to do, is like, oh, we're trapped at the bottom of the ocean, let's share resources. They immediately don't trust Jimmy. They recognize him and they're like, you did this. And he's like, no, we're here for this. And then the next morning when it spread and killed Jenkins, they're super pissed at Jimmy, right? So you have this great escalation, which is in many ways nobody's fault. It's just a scenario that is now unfolding. But again, if this is the greatest moment of Jimmy's life, what's the turn?
So we've lost ability to go many places in the turtle. We've lost control, but because Jimmy used to work, maybe was part of the design crew who designed the turtle.
Right.
Something like that. He knows more about how to get out of the situation than the other people.
What is the name of that frickin' just absolutely incredible actress? She's in The Abyss. She was also in Robin Hood.
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Oh my God. She is.
I've had to say that name several times, and I had to.
She's absolutely a force on film. Like, I just believe, no matter what exposition she delivered, I would believe it totally, because she seems to believe everything she's saying so perfectly. She's amazing. So I'm imagining that in some impassioned, say her name again?
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio.
Is that our Jimmy?
In our Master Antonio level of like knowledge, that's our Jimmy. Jimmy is like, oh my God, I can save us, but you have to trust me. And of course they wouldn't trust him because he just brought this killer thing on. They think he
This
cut
is your
off.
fault.
Yeah, you cut off communication. You sabotaged us with this like killer plant, and now you want access to our systems. Now we have a bunch of conflict where our big moments and our big characters and our small moments with big heart can happen, where people who know him are speaking on his behalf, and people who know his old self are speaking against him. And now the viewer, the reader, the observer has to make a choice for themselves as to who is right. And that makes it interesting. Like, that's a story worth exploring, because it's not about monster plants or underwater robots. It's actually about who do you trust?
Conflict.
Who do you trust, and why do you trust them?
And we've got a number 10 shaker coming in here. It could happen anytime. You have got to get back to the lab and get everybody out now.
If it's a film, that's interesting to performers, much more than the blue screen elements, green screen elements, or digital elements would be. And as a writer, that's also, you can draw upon your actual lived experience to write those moments. You don't have to have ever been at the bottom of the ocean to write an argument between two people not trusting a third person, right? So, most of these genres also have a meet cute. There's always some tense.
See, I was going to bring up
sexual tension.
We need to have a couple deaths, but okay. Let's go.
You went the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, there are little deaths and there are big deaths, as the expression goes. So we just had Jenkins die. Maybe it's an old flame rekindled when he meets, or maybe it's the will they, won't they? Like, the person in charge of the turtle is like, that Jimmy is a piece of shit. And then you find out that she thinks that because they had a really destructive relationship. So, of course, that is a valid reason to think he's a piece of shit. But his motivations in the world and his motivations in a relationship might not be the same, right? And maybe he's brought along someone who he has a healthy relationship with. And is there anything more interesting? You and I have been in this position, Justin, where you're sitting at the table next to two people who are talking about a third person who just left to go to the bathroom. Right? But you can overhear it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the scenario that we get to have. And I don't have an answer for what those all should be, dear listener. What I'm suggesting is in these tight quarters of the turtle, it's a little bit bigger. So you have places where people can have two people talking about a third who's left the scene. And then whichever would be the worst possible scenario of people to trap in a small space together, you get to triangulate for the viewer, reader, observer. You can say like, oh man, the last thing those two people should do is be trapped in a tiny space together. And that's who you put in the tiny space in the end of the third act.
Yeah.
To force that conflict even
And
more.
now they need to navigate this dangerous maze to accomplish a goal together. They have to work together.
And because this is a first draft and we haven't introduced too many other characters, you just try to work it all the way to the end. So I suggest that Jimmy and his current healthy relationship and his past toxic relationship are all trapped in one of these tiny things together.
The ex-girlfriend and the current girlfriend.
That's right. Now, the Burchell test is, of course, two women should
Bechdel.
be back to say it again.
Bechdel test.
Bechdel test is two women who are talking in a story and they're not talking about a man, and what they're relating to furthers the plot. So in a great way, you can have the majority of their interactions have absolutely nothing to do with him.
Well, one has climbed the corporate ladders and in charge of the turtle, in charge of this huge multi-billion-dollar operation, and the other turned her nose up at the money and did the right thing.
And in the classic male fashion, Jimmy thinks that all their conflicts are about him. Mm-hmm. And we will present them as richly developed characters that have their own inner lives that have nothing to do with him. And he keeps...
There's going to be some studio notes about this.
That's right. But he keeps
no kissing till episode 5. Wait.
He keeps inserting himself into their conflicts as if they're about him, which will make him seem even more like a piece, right? So now Jimmy is functioning as he's our Burke, right? Mm-hmm. But he's sometimes okay and sometimes the worst. And that's kind of our story about humanity here, is like the best parts of humanity are curious, they explore, they preserve. The worst parts of humanity are development for development's sake. You know, who cares the cost? We just have to keep consuming. We have those two elements here present in our story. Keep in mind, we did not brainstorm that thematic element at the beginning. What we're doing now is we're saying, is this thematic element present?
Fits.
It fits. Yep. So then what you do is you think about how your story brings out those two elements so that the story rhymes with itself. How do you increase the conflict between the need for humans' constant expansion and human curiosity and willingness to help each other? You put those two things in conflict. They have what would have otherwise been the cure for the earth.
And this is the reason why you don't want to set things in stone too early on, is because this developed naturally as we discussed. If we started with, okay, we have 5 characters.
They must do
A,
this.
B, C,
You're
right.
This, yeah.
When
a giant
you had
spider
this idea,
has to show up in the third act.
Yeah, suddenly all this doesn't work. You have to kind of keep it loose and Mobius and like develop it as it needs, right? The story requires this kind of relationship, or it
has to be able to, at the draft stage, it has to be able to fold back in on itself. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Otherwise, you can't move things around and make it fun. So and here's another part I'll point out that I'm realizing, if that's the theme that's emerged and they've got the cure, that's what makes it so kind of poignant and wonderful, that they get to the surface and it's too late.
Okay, but I want to bring this up. The obvious conclusion to all these movies is get to the surface.
Right.
Do we want to get to the surface?
Do they go back down after?
Maybe.
Well, maybe they go back after they realize it.
Because I'm thinking, okay, third act, like, oh, there's no more escape pods. They have to, deconstruct part of the turtle to come up to the surface, and that's the end of the movie. But that's the obvious thing with all these undersea movies is like we got to get up to the surface.
Okay.
And so maybe
I love this idea because
let's not go up to the surface.
I'm going to borrow from one of my favorite movies of the last decade in its story structure. It has its own problems, but I love Mad Max Fury Road for the following structural reason. The characters have a clear plan that seems like the plot of the movie. And by the second act, it completely fails, and they make a new plan, right? Which is the most dangerous thing you could imagine doing, but it's all they have left. What I'm suggesting is that they find this stuff on the bottom of the ocean. It kills Jenkins. They have to try to escape from it. They barely repair the turtle. They come together as a group as necessary, and they make it to the surface. Oh, we're going to save the day. But the essential element we establish, without laying it on too thick at the beginning, is that if this thing is exposed to a small amount of, let's say, normal human atmosphere, like the constituent of the planet, it replicates that atmosphere.
Yeah, lack of pressure and access to oxygen, this thing grows uncontrollable.
Which means so they go at the final scene to the surface. They see the mushroom clouds and the flashes on land, and they realize that there's nothing else to do. Is all hope lost? No. Then the very, very final scene is them descending back to that dome, which is all overgrown and on the inside now has replicated a stable environment inside the dome. And so what we have now is a scenario where he's the last man on Earth, and there are two women who don't like him.
What do they want from us?
They want us to survive. They want to teach us balance.
We need that balance to save ourselves.
Yes, except time is running out.
Is that a prophecy?
No, it's a certainty.
Now, is that the greatest story we ever wrote? No.
No. It's a first draft.
Yeah.
It is a first draft.
There's some fun elements there to pick away at.
And you leave in or you leave out anything you don't like. So for the bottom line, the plot of the bottom line, oh, this is kind of nice now that that's the title. Because they return to there, right?
Actually, I think what we've established here works really well if Wes Anderson was to direct this.
Oh, like a Steve Zissou movie?
He might be hard to get.
But if, James Cameron is directing this, very different film,
Yes.
right? It's what kind of
Absolutely. The style is
tone,
going to make the story, right? But even right here at
That
the
ending,
table,
though.
if Dan goes away and writes it, right, the parts of the characters that come from him will be different. If I go away and write the exact same plot, those characters will come from me, and in your case, will come from you. And if we just play this game, I won't ask anyone to name names. I'll just read your faces. If you imagine two people in relationships in your life that you hope would never meet, right? Yes, there's the face I'm looking for. Now that's what you'd be putting into the draft, right? Yeah. Is that feeling? How do you write those two people in your life you would hope would never meet and that you wouldn't have to sit within a 10-foot radius of while it was happening?
And be stranded at the end of the world with.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? Now it's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So, and there's a nice play on words here when we talk about a story rhyming with itself. The bottom line. What is the bottom line? Is it survival? Is it the bottom line, the progression of the species? The bottom line, we have to save everyone's the bottom line, the money you make for a company. Like the bottom line becomes all these things. And then, of course, the bottom line is that they are on the literal bottom of the world, right?
And there's a line coming out of the back of the
That's
turtle.
right. And there's the line they're dragging. There's like all these great things, right, that make the bottom line good. I think the bottom line would have terrible SEO.
Yeah, probably.
Right? So you'd have to call it Dan Vadeboncoeur's The Bottom Line, right? So that's what's...
I don't know if that would help. But anyway.
But it would help differentiate.
Yes,
that is what happens, right?
Yeah.
My God, good story break.
Good.
Fun, yeah.
What's it missing, and how are we doing for time?
We could wrap it up anytime. We've gone in almost an hour. What's it missing? I don't know. It's missing more character development, but that can come later.
Again, it's hard to come out the gate with that. You kind of need to see what kind of story it is, and then what kind of characters will fit best or be more interesting in those situations. Yeah. It's a deep sea facility movie. We have a really cool facility. We're going to have cool deep sea suits. We have to talk about pressure. We have to talk about the isolation. We have to, establish
No contact with the surface.
Yeah.
Well, here, I'll go through our list. Big characters, small moments, big heart. We have to handle them with care. We have to have no contact with the surface. We have to have an isolated environment. Check. We had to have the world end. Check. Cool suits. Lots of cool suits. We didn't do that many cool suits. We kind of sidestepped that into something that...
We can get them outside to repair something or something like that.
We did have that. But in the second draft, we'll have some more. And they have to discover something new and alien at the bottom of the ocean.
That's right. And we wanted to have an outsider. And so we made James our outsider who's inside both groups, has knowledge of both groups. We wanted to have people that the audience, the reader, the viewer would recognize as blue collar, people who are just trying to do the best job they can.
You need to flood some rooms with water and have some people shut them.
Bang on the window.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Every underwater scene has the scene where they have to close.
Yeah.
Every submarine movie.
It's too late. You gotta close the door.
Otherwise, everybody dies.
I hate those scenes because I know I'm that guy on the other side.
Yeah, totally didn't make it in time.
I am not the fast one. No way. No way. Yeah. And I'm probably hoping that the door bursts anyway and you all die if I've been locked on the other side, right? So yeah, we checked off our checklist for the bottom line.
I think Hollywood is due for some more underwater movies.
I don't know. I haven't seen the new James Cameron movie. I assume a lot of it's underwater.
I thought the last one was underwater.
The last one was underwater.
Yeah, there's more underwater for this, the newer one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 70% of the Earth is water. What if 70% of films and stories were about water? That would be okay, right?
Well, if there was an intelligent species under the water that wanted to watch movies, then that would probably be the case.
Yeah, know your audience. So, dear listener, what we've done in our story break is not concern ourselves with the quality of the material at first, but simply the structure that will allow us to get to a story. The story is the unit we're seeking. Now you have a story. All good writing is rewriting. And so if we like this story, we could go away and rewrite it to be good. If you like this story, dear listener, you're welcome to rewrite it in some way. And we're not worried about our own intellectual property because you will express it your way. And it would be very different than we would express it our way. If you're talking about thousands of hours of development, it would probably end up different. So we're not too concerned.
What if the turtle was like full of CO2? They're all going to die. We have that moment of like, we have 2 minutes of oxygen left, but the plant eats carbon dioxide, produces oxygen. So it basically makes this turtle livable forever.
Yeah, that was my thing, is that they wouldn't find that out, though, till the end of the movie.
Okay.
And then they can retreat there to be the last people on Earth under the
Going
ocean.
up and back down there, there's the you have to like decompress for like weeks or something.
We would have a future system.
Right. Take your decompression pill, quick.
Yeah, quick. It's like they do in Pitch Black, right? It takes a long time to travel between places in space, but plug this fluid into your arm and everything's fine. They don't explain how or why it works. You go into sleep. You just sleep. You don't go to the bathroom ever in space in Pitch Black, but you do sleep. All right, so there's another piece here.
You're going to think of it once we're done recording.
No, but I was just recognizing thematically. We didn't do this on purpose, but the last place on Earth literally being a turtle island at the end.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a beauty to that. And for those of you who don't know the reference, just look up any Indigenous histories and you'll be fine. You'll find it right there.
You can have the final scene, somebody in one of the mech suits tending an underwater garden while there's other people making baskets and stuff in the
Cut
turtle.
To 10 years later.
Yeah, there's a whole little village.
Poor James is still alone. He hasn't learned his lesson.
Poor James.
All right. So, dear listener, this has been Super Pulp Science. I am GMB Kamichuk, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics. And 70% of them you should make about the ocean.